fires one towards the goal. That's going to be gloved by Travis Ridgen. Well, this is more like it.
This is Slangin The Bizkit. Here's Travis Ridgen and Dave Wheeler.
All right, let's get rolling. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Slangin The Bizkit. This is going to be episode 41 of the podcast, the Mike Smith episode, the Vitek Vanacek.
I was hoping you would say, if you said anyone but Mike Smith, he wore 41 of the Calgary Flames. Good call.
I just want to say, let's start out the podcast hot. Mike Smith is the most underappreciated, most underrated goalie, I think, of the last decade that everybody shits on for no reason. This guy was the biggest playoff performer. 2012, carried the Yotes to the conference final against the Kings. 2018, only reason the Flames didn't get swept by the Avalanche. And then for the Oilers last year, granted, they fell a little bit short against the Avalanche, but that man, I thought, carried the team against the Flames, and he was just a man on a mission towards the end. He was just so good keeping them in games.
Yeah, well, he's got that kryptonite hanging around his neck because he just can't get to that next spot, right? He just can't. He was supposed to be the answer for the Oilers, and he wasn't. And they're still flailing with what they're going to. It seems like every team in the playoffs right now is flailing with their goaltenders outside of Florida with Bobrovksy, but you've got an eighth-string goaltender with Vegas in right now.
Yeah, Aiden Hill. Actually, I believe he's in Edmonton. Might be a Calgary boy playing for Vegas. But then you have the Leafs shuffling through goalies. I mean, as you mentioned, last episode, Curtis Joseph dressing not too long ago. My boy Muzz sitting on the stands, the Spirit Fingers for games 1 through 3, which we'll get to later on. But another man who is very underappreciated, I think, is my co-host. He hosts the #1 morning show in the city of Winnipeg. He's slicing and dicing it up at the corner of, not Portage and Main, at Jack Blick Avenue at the studio. Dave Wheeler, host of Wheeler in the Morning.
The palatial penthouse studio at Polo Park. Yes. Busy day today, man. Honestly, yesterday McHappy Day, which is the day of recording. Wednesday was at McHappy Day, which is raising money for Ronald McDonald House. Always happy to help out with that. And then I was asked to do a memorial service for Bobby Hull, Chicago Blackhawk, Winnipeg Jet. He was just an absolute wonderful man. And I was asked to MC his memorial service, and to me, that was just humbling. Very, very, very humbling. Today, after we're done here, I go and I do a commercial shoot for some new ads that we're going to be running on social media and at movie theaters and stuff. So, yeah, life in the fast lane, man. You think radio is just talking on a microphone? No, way more than that.
Why don't we get into that off the bat? I wanted to, today's headline is going to be a little bit of retirement talk, my plans post-retirement, how we're going to get there, how long am I going to play. But before we get to that, why don't we dive into that maybe a little bit quickly? I know people, we talk about the recruitment process for hockey and pro hockey and the Feb between free agent camps, the expansion draft, signings, all this kind of stuff. What about radio? Like, what is your expansion draft in radio? What is your free agent signing, your signing bonus, your negotiation? Like, what's that like?
It all depends kind of where you are in your career. I mean, for the first handful of years, you're sending out demo tapes and resumes and emails to pretty much every program director who are essentially the managers of a radio station, to everyone across the country, and just trying to, so you send a highlight reel, no different than you do to recruiters for college or junior or whatever it is. You send a highlight reel of your best stuff, and hopefully you get a phone call, and hopefully you interview well. So I think the process is kind of the same, but then you get later into your career, and if your name gets to be known enough and somebody has an opening, they'll kind of find out where you are in a contract, because our industry is not unionized, so everyone's kind of a free agent depending on if you're an employee contract or not. And you get to a point where you just start getting phone calls saying, hey, are you willing to jump ship? Like, what's your contract at? How much time do you have left? Do you have a no-compete clause, which means even if we did hire you, you would have to sit on the sidelines for 6 months. So people go, I'll find a new radio show, and then there's a lot of backdoor deals and behind-the-scenes signings, but it's a revolving door. Radio always has been, and it's not an industry where you get into it to make a lot of money. You get into it because it's a lot of fun and the perks are great. The money hopefully comes later in the career, but I'm in the middle of renegotiating my contract. I'm just coming off a 1-year deal and then a 2-year deal, so I'm in the negotiating room as we speak, working on a new deal, which hopefully I should have signed before the end of this month or early in June.
Okay, so since you're negotiating your contract, then you have any advice for me? Any words of wisdom? Any golden nuggets?
Well, I mean, if you were to read a book called The Art of the Deal, if you want the stars, you shoot for the moon, and you convince them that you're not settling for anything less than the moon. And then finally, when they feel like they've whittled you down to the stars, you go, okay, fine, I'll take the stars, which is what you really wanted originally.
Okay, so maybe that's my negotiating strategy then. I will say, though, from what you just mentioned with the non-compete clause and all this kind of stuff, It sounds a lot like the Fedzino, short of the non-compete. I mean, people calling you when they shouldn't be. Hey, do you want to come play? Do you want to come jump ship? And then, maybe you entertain an offer and then you talk from there. But yeah, I think we have a lot more in common than maybe we thought.
Oh, I think so. I mean, listen, it's the entertainment industry, and we've talked about that before, and that's one thing that Bobby Hull realized very quickly in his career is that this is an entertainment industry. Yeah, I'm a hockey player, but I'm here for your entertainment. And he never left the arena until everyone that wanted an autograph got an autograph. He never left the arena or an event until if someone wanted their hand shook, he would shake their hand. He would give everyone that wanted a piece of him, he would give you the time. And he realized that. And I think anyone in the game of hockey, Tiger Woods gets a lot of credit by your local CPGA or USGA pro, saying the only reason I'm putting money in my pocket is because of Tiger Woods because he grew the game to what it was. Bobby Hull was very similar. He was the first $1 million hockey player, and Stan Mikita, who you'll remember famously from the Wayne's World movie, Stan Mikita's, which was an American ripoff of Tim Hortons, which I thought was great. But he even said, he goes, I get down on my knees every night before bed, and I thank God for Bobby Hull because he finally got hockey players paid, because before that, guys were having to work in the offseason. Like even playing at the NHL level would have to work in the offseason, whether it be on the farm or at a factory or wherever it may be, in order to make ends meet for the family. And Bobby Hull was the one that got them to the point where they were actually able to make a living. And because of that, now we have numerous leagues. And, the Fedzino, you're likely not making enough money to support a family of 3. But the fact that you're able to play in a professional league and make money, that goes back to Bobby Hull. You can trace that line all the way back to Bobby Hull.
Yeah, to my knowledge, the only one who's making money enough for a family of 3 is Joe Pace, but he's also doing all the entertainment. He's the GM, head coach. He's the everything for the Mississippi Seawolves, so that makes sense. If I can get $150 a week, I think that's an absolute win. Obviously going to settle for $125. I'm just happy to be in the league, which is my goal. But speaking of entertainment, we have some exclusive video this week on Slangin The Bizkit. Now, if you're on the video version of the podcast, you're going to see this. If you're on the audio version on Apple or Spotify in the car, you're just going to have to try to picture it. Now, one of the hottest artists in the world, Morgan Wallen. You know who Morgan Wallen is, right, Dave?
Of course. Waking up next to you. Waking up next to you.
I need some whiskey glasses. Chasing you, right? So we have some exclusive video. Now, recently he canceled one of his concerts at the absolute last minute. They had a mess to go up in the Jumbotron. Morgan's lost his voice. There'll be refunds available when you can get them, which, by the way, apparently still haven't been refunded. But there's leaked footage of a security guard coming out saying, I don't know, man, that's a lie. That guy was so drunk he couldn't even stand up and make it out of his dressing room. I have obtained exclusive video of Morgan Wallen coming out of his dressing room, coming to tell his manager that he can't perform the show. To the video.
Julian! I don't know where I felt like I get a little drink around here, do you, bud?
Wow, man, the striking resemblance between Morgan Wallen and Jim Leahy is uncanny. I mean, that's uncanny. But you know what? I can see it. And you know what? Hey, listen, the media, I mean, whether it be Canadian or American media, they tell half-truths all the time. So the fact that they said that Morgan Wallen lost his voice wasn't necessarily a lie. Could he speak? Probably not, because he was that drunk. So it was just kind of fluffing up the truth, but instead of saying, listen, he's drunk off his ass hammered and he can't do the show, he lost his voice is the easier explanation.
Well, I did see he posted a thing, I think it was yesterday, announcing that he's canceling all of his summer shows because he's got to take 6 weeks vocal rest. He said he's got some damage on his vocal cords and this is better for his career. So maybe there was some truth to him losing his voice, but well, let's be honest, he showed up absolutely tanked out of his mind, walking out of the trailer like Jim Leahy in Sunnyvale Trailer Park.
Well, it's amazing. A lot of these, we'll call them pop artists, regardless of what genre you're in. If you're popular in your genre, we will call you pop music. The way that they take care of their voices, the good majority of them, like Justin Hawkins is a good example. He's the lead singer of The Darkness. He had to go through vocal surgery. He was gargling wine, like actual Merlot, before he go out and say, like, all right, let's go do a show. And just, I mean, operatic singers and people that sing, in concert halls and whatnot, they do not speak 2 hours before the show. They are drinking tea and honey. They are doing la 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 la. You don't got rock stars doing that. They're like, all right, another whiskey, let's go. It's just amazing to me how some of these, it's like a Phil Kessel. Let's use Phil Kessel as the example. Here's a guy who probably can't even spell Jim without using a J, has more hot dogs than the guys in the Nathan's hot dog eating contest, and goes out there and scores goals. Probably doesn't overly enjoy the game, but just knows he's really good at it. A lot of these rock stars are just like, this is what I do. They take it seriously, but they don't really take it seriously like you would a traditionally or classically trained singer.
Well, they don't ask how, they ask how many, right?
Right, exactly. You know, when it comes down to it, we've talked about it before with Buffalo and whatnot. Oh, Buffalo came into camp overweight. So what? Is he laying guys out? Is he clearing the blue line? Is he putting pucks in the net? Is he standing in front of them on power plays? Phil Kessel, is he putting the puck in the net? Who cares? Who cares? Theo Fleury, did they care that he was coming in by helicopter at MSG at, like after being out in Vegas at 4 o'clock in the morning? No. Do they care that he scored the overtime winner? Yes.
I heard he came on the helicopter, and the first thing he said was, "I'm wearing a pair of Sheath Underwear."
Which is why he was able to perform as well as he did.
Yes, and Sheath Underwear is the presenting sponsor for this podcast. Now, if you didn't know, well, let's tell you about them. They have incredible bamboo mesh technology to keep you cool, especially with summer. I'll tell you right now, in Vancouver, it was plus 22 yesterday. It's going to be plus 28 tomorrow. Everything is green. I know Winnipeg still had a little bit of a blizzard yesterday, but if you're in Vancouver, you need a pair of Sheath Underwear, that bamboo mesh. They also have the dual pouch technology, which is going to separate your dick and your balls so they don't stick to the side of your leg. They're not bat winging, and they don't stick together as well. So they're going to be separated, compartmentalized. They can breathe comfortably, and ultimately, you're just upgrading your seat with Sheath, and you can do so when you go to the link in the video description on the YouTube podcast. It's going to be a link for sheathunderwear.com. You enter in the code BIZKIT69, that's BIZKIT 69. It's going to get you 20% off, the best underwear money can buy. If you're on the Apple or the Spotify version, pull over when safe to do so, or when you're done your set at the gym, go on the podcast notes, and then just punch in that same code. You get 20% off, the best that money can get. Also, we have to give a shout out to Lamar. He's a viewer of the show, picked up a pair of Sheath Underwear last week, and he said, "Trav, can you give me a shout out?" So Lamar, I'm giving a shout out to you and your baloney pony. You're putting it in Sheath Underwear now, and it's awesome. I'm glad you finally upgraded.
For the record, it wasn't a blizzard we got here in Winnipeg. It was a storm, and we happened to get some hail, but it did melt. And there was a tornado warning as well, but nothing touched down. We're fine. There's no snow on the ground. You shove it with your blizzard.
I struggle sometimes to convince people on how much I love Winnipeg. I find when I leave Winnipeg, I become a very patriotic Winnipegger. But when I'm in it, maybe not so much. And sometimes I try to convince Victoria on just like how nice Winnipeg can be. Well, we're the murder capital of the city or of Canada. It gets plus 30 in the summer and minus 30 in the winter, and you get about 6 weeks of good weather in between there. And yeah, it's Winnipeg basically. We got the Jets too. Have I mentioned that? It's a very short list.
We have a lot of things that we can celebrate. Well, Winnipeg is the actual birthplace of William Stevenson, who is de facto the inspiration behind 007 James Bond. We got that. We got Neil Young. We got Randy Bachman and BTO. We got My Big Fat Greek Wedding, the lady that starred in that from Winnipeg, Nia Vardalos. We got some notables here. We got Travis Ridgen playing in the FPHL. Yeah. We got 4 guys from Manitoba and 3 from Winnipeg playing for the Vegas Golden Knights. So, we're representing.
I used to skate against Keegan Colzar in the summer. Man, like it's crazy to like see how successful he's turned into with the Vegas Golden Knights. Like he's always had a great shot. He's always been a man amongst boys, but to see him at the National League level is just crazy. And I mean Brett Howden, I think, is 2 years younger than me. One.
Yeah, White Cloud, who was undrafted, played for Bemidji State. He was a Vincent Massey grad, and then of course we got Mark Stone, who is the captain of the Vegas Golden Knights. So yeah, we're well represented in the playoffs right now.
Actually, there's actually a big renaissance of Winnipeg hockey players in the city of Winnipeg. There was 3 first-round picks last year. There's going to be 2 more. Winnipeg had the 12th overall pick with the Columbus Blue Jackets, and I can't remember what his name is. Dave, if you could Google it, that'd be great. The 21st overall pick, Owen Pickering, D-man for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Well, soon to be D-man for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Owen Pickering cashed that $98,000 US last year after he signed that entry-level deal. And then I can't remember, somebody was late 30th overall, 34th overall, I think, to Columbus as well. But yeah, a lot of really
Mateychuk.
Mateychuk, yep. Mateychuk. Yeah. Mateychuk went 12th overall to Columbus. And then actually, Picks, I guess, had his first one-on-one skate private session of the year yesterday. And the guy that runs the skates, his first thing Picks asked, "Where's Trav? Why isn't Trav a net for me?" And then we ended up talking like, I'm good for boosting his confidence because, there's like 7,000 pucks in the back of the net. And so Zach, who runs the skate, says to me, "Why don't we got to get you like a Wilkes-Barre jersey, and then we could sell it and post video online and like to pump up our prospects." And I said, "Yeah," until people start asking, why does he have a Wilkes-Barre jersey and his gear's all purple? Oh, he's in the system. He's up and down a lot of call-ups, using his college gear. But yeah, he's in the system. Don't worry about it.
Listen, I had this idea. I think I've mentioned this on this podcast before, so if I have, forgive me for saying it again. But I ran it by a table full of guys at the watering hole, and they didn't mind it. But we used to have the Canada Cup. And it was an incredible, incredible tournament. It was done every 4 years, very similar to the World Cup. Then it got changed to the World Cup, and then the NHL took it over, and it was like a preseason thing, and it was just it's watered down. Right now, we have the World Championships, which is about to kick off here, where a lot of guys that are out of the NHL will go and play for their respective countries, and it's overshadowed. It's a bigger deal over in Europe than it is here in North America because we're still dealing with the NHL playoffs, and over in Europe, most of the guys have already done their season. But I would love to see a reincarnation of the Canada Cup happen every single year. And what would happen is players that are no longer in the Stanley Cup playoffs, they're no longer in contention, they go back and they play for their home province. So you would have BC versus Alberta versus Saskatchewan versus Manitoba versus Ontario, Northern Ontario, Southern Ontario, got to split them up. And then New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PEI. You could probably put the Atlantic countries together. You can pick from your junior teams. You can pick from some of your senior teams. You can pick from whatever, NHL, AHL, all the way down to the SP and the FP. But you could also probably bring in some northern U.S. states, maybe combine a few of them. And I think that would be a much more entertaining and local tournament than what we're seeing right now with the World Championships, which I said is likely overshadowed. And I think personally, a lot of the Canadian players that are playing over in Europe should be populating that Canadian team to play in that tournament.
I'd be curious.
Kind of like the Spangler.
If you broke down like the rankings and the quality of players of I guess Manitoba guys, would I be eligible for that? Because I mean, I don't know, like where are you gonna find a Manitoba-based goalie in minor pro? There might be a couple. Maybe I can make it out as like the emergency backup or something.
We get Reimer. Reimer would start for us.
Hopefully he'd be in the playoffs.
But he's not.
Actually, we want all the Winnipeg guys in the playoffs, and then you're stuck with me. Unfortunately, that'd be great.
I think it would be a great tournament. I think it'd be a lot of fun. By the way, since we're talking about hockey that's still going on, the only hockey that Winnipeg has left, because the Manitoba Moose were knocked out of the American Hockey League playoffs by the Milwaukee Admirals, thanks to the comment down in last week's episode. Thanks. Appreciate that. And we got the Winnipeg Ice, who are playing in the Western Hockey League finals against the Seattle Thunderbirds, and they're actually moving their rink. They normally play out of the University of Manitoba campus at the Ice Cave inside of Wayne Fleming Arena. They're going to be moving to Canada Life Centre, downtown Winnipeg, where the Jets and the Moose normally play.
Yeah, I don't know why they set up shop at the Wayne Fleming Arena. I remember when they were first doing the renovations, I was like, this arena's so small. Like, why can you have a Western League team in a major Canadian city playing at Wayne Fleming Arena? It's too small. Hopefully they can upgrade it or change locations at some point. But
the plan was that they were going to build, I think it was a 5,000 or 6,000 seat rink down McGillivray Boulevard, which is kind of like an industrial area, and they had some real estate out there. But the pandemic started, and then everything just kind of fell apart, and there's not a lot of word on if it's going to happen or when it's going to happen or should it happen. And I mean, is this good enough? Is that good enough? So who knows? I mean, listen, there's rumors about the team leaving. We don't know. We honestly don't know anything at this point. All I'm focused on right now, good luck, Ice, in the finals against the Thunderbirds.
All right. Speaking of leaving, let's get into our headliner for the day. But we got to get a little bit of Motor City updates, which there are none. There are no Motor City updates, no expansion team updates. Nobody's been in contact. My agent's been kind of working a little bit behind the scenes on trying to give me some updates lately. So that's basically that.
Good. I'm glad to hear. How's your recovery coming?
A little bit of a speed bump recently. Now, my surgeon mentioned that there was going to be some speed bumps once we started skating.
The handsome one?
I forgot to mention to you, when I went to go see him in Winnipeg in beginning of April, I said to him, he took his mask off or whatever, and I said, God damn, you're good looking. It turns out he's only 35, a 35-year-old surgeon. And he looks like Prince Charming. We've talked about this before. Have I given the breakdown of the suspect or no?
Handsome devil, yep.
Yeah. Yeah, Prince Charming and Shrek, maybe chop off, I'm going to say like an inch off the back. Maybe a little bit less chubby face, but that good jawline. That's what my doc looks like. And he takes his mask off, and I said, damn, like you're really good looking, doc. And he says, yeah, my wife's never complained. And then he just walks away. What a beauty.
Mine does.
Mine does too. That makes two of us.
So talking about retirement, you said you had a setback in your recovery?
Little bit of a setback, yeah. So Doc mentioned that with how big the bone growth was that he shaved off and just the damage to my labrum, that once we started skating, because that's what caused everything, there was going to be some hiccups. So like right now, I'm moving great. I'm moving on my knees great, moving on my feet great. But when I'm getting all my weight loaded on my surgery side and I'm driving through my new hip, having a little bit of discomfort and having a hard time supporting the whole weight. So just to be patient, we're going to keep working on it. We're going to keep working on load and weight-bearing stuff in the gym. But the goal is 100% full normalcy by July 1st, which is, I think, 8 weeks away-ish. And that's still ahead of schedule on the timeline that I was given when I had surgery. So a couple speed bumps, but that's part of the process. But
okay, well, I'll ask you the same question that was asked of Gabriel Landeskog when he did his little Zoom press conference from his basement, apparently. They asked him because he's going to be out all of next season. Captain of the Colorado Avalanche, Gabe Landeskog, out for the entire 23-24 season. They're replacing the cartilage in his knee. Gnarly. And they asked him, they said, yeah, are you thinking about retirement? And he said, no. He goes, I want to get back on the ice. He goes, I'm doing the surgery so I can go back and play hockey. So I'm curious to know, have you had the thoughts of, I'm recovering? Is it worth it because I go through this again?
Oh, yeah. I think the chronic day-to-day pain being gone and never having to deal with it again is worth it on its own. Like, even before, like, just like I wake up, I get up out of bed and there's creaking, there's groaning, there's cracking, there's popping, there's clicking. That's gone. The day-to-day tightness is gone. There's still a little bit there, which I'm working out of the system. But overall, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I'm so happy I got the surgery done. Even if there are zero performance benefits, which I've already seen some performance benefits, even if there were zero, the surgery would be worth it. So I wish I got it sooner. I know you predicted I would say that before I even got it, but I wish I'd done it sooner. Life is way better with the surgery. So, but the retirement talk. Actually retiring has never crossed my mind. I knew that if I didn't get the surgery, I would have to retire because I couldn't stay healthy with all these injuries that are coming from it. But a couple of the thoughts I had were, what am I going to do post-retirement, right? Like, eventually, hockey's going to come to an end. How long am I going to play? That's a great question. I don't have the same pressure that other guys have with the old lady putting pressure on you. I'm running out of money because I got to pay for my student debt because I don't have any student debt. I went to school for free, thank God. And the vlog and the podcast obviously help, create an income when, Big Sexy's working at Subway over the summer.
Good. Sandwich artist.
I can only imagine him making the subs. You single? What's your snap? You got Snapchat? Actually, can I tell a real quick story? Real quick story. Him and I were having lunch one time after practice. We have like one of the local diners just outside the arena, Vic's Diner, great spot. Shout out Vic. And we're having lunch. And he says to me, he's like, "Do you think I can pick up that waitress?" I said, Elias, like, dude, like this is like one of the the restaurants outside the arena. The owner comes to our games. Like, maybe we leave it be. And he says, "I'm going to do it." So I go up and it's my turn to pay for lunch. I'm paying the bill, talking to this waitress. Here's the card, here's the tip, whatever. And then he just comes storming like a bat out of hell, like in the words of Meatloaf, right? And just slams his phone on the table. He's like, "What's your Snapchat?" And she says, "Oh, I don't have Snapchat." He says, "Well, what's your number?" "Oh, I'm not giving it out at this time." He's like, "Why?" She's like, "Well, I have a boyfriend." "You sure?"
No, you're right. You're right. I don't. That's silly me.
Sorry, I forgot. I dumped them last week. Yes, here's my number.
Hey, shoot your shot, man. Got to shoot your shot.
Also, he told me, I was texting him yesterday, Motor City protected him. He was on the protected list for the team.
Good for him. That's got to feel good.
That's got to feel good, yeah. The Gordie Howe hat-trick leader for the Motor City Rockers this season. He also mentioned that they were going to be doing big, sexy merchandise. The team was going to be selling shirts with his face on it, and then he was going to be getting half the proceeds. So that's awesome for him because then he doesn't have to do as many trips to the can depot.
Yeah, good. Or if you donate a sack of empty cans, you get a free T-shirt.
I saw a truck the other day. It was like a rundown, like a Ram 1500 or whatever, that I just rusted out driving down Granville Street yesterday in downtown, or the other day in downtown Vancouver, and they had like 10 bags of cans. I tried to snap a picture of it, but it turned before I could get a picture. I was going to send it to him and ask him if he was in Vancouver, but oh well.
Well, how much do you get per can in down in Michigan?
10 cents a piece.
Really? It's only $5 here in Canada. That's good money.
Yeah, I've seen him do his hauls and him come back and say, "Hey, I got $150, $170," and then boom, it goes right to the casino.
That's the part that irks me. That's the part. It's like, I need money for food and gambling.
Well, he's trying to double it.
He's what?
He's trying to double it at the casino. He's trying to double his earnings. But also, we talked about it. The Walmart on 8 Mile closed, so we'll leave it at that.
Right. Well, listen, if I learned anything from Wesley Snipes back in the early 90s is if you're going to gamble, always bet on black.
Speaking of retirement, so I had a couple ideas, right? Retirement is going to come eventually. How long am I going to play? I don't know. I love playing hockey, and I guess when I stop loving it or my body physically can't do it anymore is when I will retire. We talked last week about I could be a starter in the SP by 30, 31, 32 if I just stick in the game and find the right opportunities. But when retirement does come, I had a couple of ideas written down, and I want you to tell me your 2 cents on this, Dave. What you think could be for me. Now, first off, this podcast was the first ever post-retirement idea I had, April of 2021 with the previous co-host. I thought hockey's going to come to an end. Obviously, the thing going around is kind of making you realize how short life really is. And maybe start the podcast, it'll kind of, buy some time into the post-retirement. And obviously, the podcast has been going very well with you. So that's option number one. Option number two. Also, the Patreon members could power option number two with the new collector series of cards, by the way, which will be on the video screen of 6 sets of cards from Lundar, Arborg, my junior days, VIU College, and then 2 cards from Sweden, and then 1 from Motor City, which will be coming to the Patreon members very soon. Option number 3. Now, this was inspired by Chris Pronger. Now, Chris Pronger, I don't know if you know, post-retirement is a travel consultant. So he sets people up on vacations, sends them on train trips, cruises, all this kind of stuff. I thought, now, I don't want to be Chris Pronger's assistant or a travel consultant, but I could do travel vlogging on a full-time basis. I love travel. We talked about my passion for trains and ships and all this kind of stuff. By the way, the biggest ship of the year came into Vancouver 2 days ago, almost 1,200 feet. That's 400 feet longer than the Titanic. This is massive beauty. This is huge piece of machinery. It blows my mind that these things move and transport people. But that
True
was
or false? Do you still play with Tonka trucks in the sandbox in the backyard?
I've thought about it. I haven't done it, but I have thought about it.
You like your big machines. And listen, it's I will tell you this. There's a handful of guys that I watched, whether it be pro football or pro hockey here in Winnipeg over my 20 years here. And I'll give you an example. Doug Brown is a great example. They had Monday nights. They had Mondays off from after game day, which is usually Saturday or Sunday. And he started going to the local radio talk station here saying, hey, I would love to do a show. And so they started off kind of as a co-host, and then eventually they paired him with me, and we did this show called The Spin Zone, which is every Monday night right after the coach's show. And he kind of, cut his teeth doing broadcasting and whatnot. And now he's actually the color guy for the broadcast with Derek Taylor for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the Canadian Football League here out of Winnipeg. But he started those steps while he was still playing. Because a lot of guys once they're done going, well, I'm going to try and do play-by-play or color commentating, or I'll be on the panel or something. Very seldom do you get a gem like Kevin Bieksa or some of these guys that do really well right out of the gates. But the ones that are really successful are the ones that kind of start that path while they're still playing. Wade Miller was another one. He's actually the general manager of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers now. He was a businessman and had a few businesses while he was playing football. There's a few guys in hockey that have started doing podcasts here and there while they're still playing. But yeah, it's an easier transition because we've all heard the horror stories of pro athletes getting out of their game and trying to figure out what to do next. That's a really hard period of life, whether it be in your mid 30s to early 40s on what do I do now when everything is kind of foreign to you, where most people have to make those decisions in their late teens or early 20s.
You still talk to Doug Brown? Are you friends with him?
Oh yeah, we still chat every once in a while, yeah.
I have an amazing story about Doug Brown that you will not believe. This is actually one of my first experiences working out at a legitimate gym when I was 16 years old. Now, Doug Brown, if you don't know, legendary offensive lineman for the Blue Bombers, right?
Defensive lineman. He's a defensive end, 6'8", 275 pounds, just a mountain of a man, and never won a championship, but boy, he won a lot of awards because he was dominant in his position. Played for the Washington back then. We'll call them the Washington team, the Washington NFL team back in the day.
Talk about the Skins?
That was them, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
played with them for a while.
So one of the first things that I ever heard about Doug Brown was Doug is the only guy where as his workout goes on, his sets get more intense and he pushes more weight because he's aiming to have the fourth quarter better by the first. And so I'm 16 years old. I just finished, playing AAA. I'm trying to get ready for, Western League camps, like main camps and all this kind of stuff to actually crack junior. And I'm working out beside Doug Brown this one day. Now, keep in mind, I'm 6'5", 160 pounds, skinny as a rail. And then you got Doug Brown, 6'8", 280, whatever he is, 300 pounds. And he's doing crunches on this exercise ball, right? And he's doing these crunches. And then all of a sudden, you just hear this bang, explosion. And I look to my left, and then there's Doug sitting on the ground on top of this exercise ball. And I didn't say a word. He looks down at the ball, looks up, looks at me, and the first thing he said was, "This is God's sign that it's time to retire and that I'm getting fat." He got up, picked up the ball, and I never saw Doug Brown again. That was the only time last time I ever saw Doug Brown, ever.
Well, I think he knew what his retirement plan was, and he actually has a side gig as well. He sells medical equipment to surgeons, probably to your handsome doctor, where he is a representative selling surgical equipment and whatnot too. So he had a game plan in mind, and keep in mind he was a St. Francis Xavier graduate, SFU, out in BC. So he came with some pedigree. And again, it's just, it doesn't mean you can't focus on hockey, you can't focus on your sport, but you got to kind of think down the road. Like what am I going to do? For instance, I mean, I'm very fortunate. As long as I'm able to talk into a microphone and not be so monosyllabic, I should be able to do some sort of broadcasting, whether it be podcast or voice work or animation voicing or whatever it may be, well into my 60s. So, I mean, I'm hopefully, fingers crossed, going to have a source of revenue that's going to bring me past my retirement age to help bolster some of those costs, those increasing costs with inflation and whatnot. But, you know, outside of guys like Jaromir Jagr, who played until his late 40s, not everyone has the capability of doing that. So you kind of hope that, A, if you're playing a high enough level, you're smart enough with your money that you don't have to make a decision right away. You can if you want to. I hear more stories often than not, I mean, about just regular, ordinary human beings who retire from factory jobs or government jobs or teaching jobs or wherever it may be. They go back to work part-time at at a parts counter because they're bored. I mean, they don't have anything to do. I mean, and they're in their 60s going, I just got bored. I needed something to do with my day. I can only golf so much. And I'm like, you're doing retirement wrong. Find another hobby. It's a permanent vacation. Well, actually, permanent vacation is when you go on the ground. But you know what I'm saying?
Like Bobby Hull.
God bless his soul.
I had two ideas. Now, my mom thinks that I'm going to get in the play-by-play or like commentary. I feel like I'm a little bit too anti-corporate for like a CBC or anybody to hire me, and that's fine. But here's the two ideas I did have. I could try to become president of Via Rail or the Rocky Mountaineer train company, but I also realized you got to speak French to do that, so I guess you could scratch that. My last idea, your morning show. I could come read the weather.
Beauty's only weather.
Here's the idea that I had, okay? So radio, there's a very high turnover rate, right? You're constantly in and out with different co-hosts as you have over the course of your radio career. And I know you got an amazing thing with Tyler, but when the next contract comes, if there's an opening, maybe Adam West could, flip me $20 a day. I could, pop in shorts and flip-flops, read the weather, read Beauty's only weather only for beauties, in case you didn't know. Maybe do a couple sports scores, maybe a couple, hockeyisms on the show, and then call it a day. I'll make coffee. I got the pour over set up. I'll bring that in for you and I, and then maybe, that could be my post-retirement. What do you think? Yeah,
maybe set up some on-location broadcasts, maybe watch the station vehicle. Listen, if your budget's $20 a day, I'm pretty sure we can make something work.
It'll be like Ollie Williams from Family Guy. And to Ollie Williams for the weather report. What's it looking like there, Ollie? It's going to rain. Thanks, Ollie.
Seminole! Great reference, by the way. Listen, man, I think you are ahead of the game. I think this between your vlogs and even if you're not putting hockey stuff up there, just like your travel in general and some of the great drone shots that you're getting at these cities that you're in, I mean that's going to be able to carry you for a while. Plus, fingers crossed, this podcast stays the test of time. Believe me when I tell you, I've done more podcasts than I can count. And I think you are well on your way to having a sustainable future post-hockey.
Yeah, and I just want to say, too, thank you to everybody who listens to the podcast, because this is the reason why you and I are here, why we've made it so far. I heard a stat the other day. I had these written down that apparently 90% of podcasts don't make it past 3 episodes, and 50% of podcasts get less than 30 listens. I mean, we're in the top, according to Spotify, we're in the top 1% of all podcasts out there viewership-wise. So, and that's because of the amazing people that listen every week on the YouTube video version, on Spotify, on Apple, you for helping take this podcast to the next level since you hopped on board with me in August. And it's and the Patreon members as well. It's incredible. Again, if you want to join the Patreon page, $5 a month, get some perks, including my rookie cards in Motor City in Sweden. We got the new collector set coming out next month. Hopefully I'll have those printed, the holographic cards in my hand by then, and then mugs and shirts as well. We'll get some perks coming soon. But that's all because of the amazing people that listen every week.
And we're actually going to be doing a Patreon exclusive podcast. So if you're a Patreon subscriber, you're going to be getting a podcast of just that only you get to hear. Not out for the masses, only for you.
Yes, and that will be going up next week. So you'll be hearing this on Sunday, and then hopefully sometime this coming week is going to be posted live. So yeah, that's all for the Patreon members. But we do have a new sponsor that we should intro to the show while we still have a chance. The team at Manscaped has rejoined the podcast for the next couple months. And the Manscaped Beard Hedger, the beard trimmer, is incredible. You can have 10 different beard lengths, beard attachments, as you see on the screen here. 90-minute battery life. It's waterproof. It's everything that the lawnmower wasn't, but in a beard trimmer version. And my beard is powered by that. I just did a little taper-up job. Got my neckline all dialed in for the show this morning, maybe even an hour ago. And then Dave as well. Dave's been using the Manscaped stuff as well. So if you want to pick up something from Manscaped, there is a code in the video description. It's BIZKIT, just Biscuit. There is no 69 at the end, just Biscuit. and that will get you 20% off the Manscaped beard trimmer hedger, and it'll also get you free shipping as well. And again, that's from the team at manscaped.com. Dave, you got anything to add there?
Yeah, for men and ladies.
Yes, for the ladies, you can trim your clam if you need to.
Well, listen, the hair shows up in other places too.
You want to do a little playoff talk real quick before we get to music?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, I got a hot take. We'll just air it out there. The level of disrespect to Matt Murray and Jonathan Quick by the Vegas Golden Knights and the Toronto Maple Leafs. You have goalie issues, guys going down. You have a guy who won back-to-back cups, was a dominant force for the Pittsburgh Penguins. You have one of the biggest money goalies alive on the planet, and you not only don't bench them, you put them in the stands as the third goalie. Just ridiculous. I hope the Leafs, I know that the Leafs haven't been swept. I hope they lose in 5. They should have put Matt Murray in for game 4. I know the Leafs won. Go with the double cup champ. Vegas too. They should have put Quickie in. The guy's a gamer. I don't get it.
Yeah, well, listen, according to my clock right now, the Toronto Maple Leafs should already be on the golf course by now if the game went Friday night the way I expected it to, but who knows? I don't know what goes on in the minds of some of these GMs sometimes. I remember once upon a time when the Vancouver Canucks were affiliated with the Manitoba Moose, we had a great goaltender named Alex Auld, who maybe didn't get his fair shake with the Canucks as he expecting to. And I even remember Ron McLean once upon a time going on the air going, listen, like Vancouver, you got to give this guy a shot. You can't leave him to lay waste up in the stands. And you're right. I mean, I don't know what else a guy has to do to prove his worth on getting playoff time when you're willing to start a relatively unknown goaltender. And maybe that's it. Maybe there's too much tape on these guys and they know their weaknesses by now, especially with them aging a little bit. But I would, especially in a situation like that, why wouldn't you go with the veteran who's already got 2 Stanley Cup rings and knows what it takes to get there?
I couldn't agree more. I could see the Quickie side of things, though, because, Jonathan Quick plays a super athletic, violent, explosive game, and, the tape's out there kind of on how to beat him. But, Matt Murray, watching him play that first game back from injury against the Canucks in February, the guy's 6'5". He's huge. He's just as big as me. He's wide. His mobility is incredible. I know people shit on his glove hand. That's fake news. The guy actually has a decent glove hand from what I saw. Granted, they did beat him on the glove side one time during that game, but the guy is a top 5 goalie in the NHL. When he can stay healthy, he's healthy to my knowledge right now. I don't know why they wouldn't start him. Sheldon Keefe coached him in junior as well. So why you're going with Joseph Woll made no sense. Guy has 0 playoff experience, played 11 NHL games. I don't get it. But on the other hand, you got Sergei Bobrovksy, Sergei Bobrovksy is the best goalie in the NHL playoffs right now. He's keeping them in games. He's making saves that nobody else can. As a fan of goaltending, the mobility and the range that he has, we talk a lot in the goaltending world about end-of-range motion. When you're fully spread out, when you have nowhere left to go, and a guy like Bobrovsky or Vasilevsky or any of these Russians, they find a way to pull it back together and make one more move and make that save. It's just incredible. His foundation, his technical work, his post-play, world class. People shit on him for making $10 million a year, but he's earning every single penny of it right now in the Stanley Cup playoffs, especially with that state tax, the lack of state tax.
Well, I mean, there's escrow as well, right? I mean, a lot of those guys pay into escrow to make sure that even the heavier tax states and provinces will still kind of get their fair shake, and because that would really add a lot of troublesome contracts to work out if you didn't have escrow, right?
Yeah. The NHL's got some interesting times coming up financially, but we'll see what happens. You want to do music talk right now? Speaking of interesting, troubling times.
Well, I had sent you a YouTube link, and I don't know if it was still active or not by the time it got to you, but there's a conspiracy theory of Courtney Love, who is Kurt Cobain's widow. Kurt Cobain being the lead singer of Nirvana, and Courtney Love being the lead singer of a band called Hole, which had their grunge moment back in the 90s. There was conspiracy theories that Kurt had written her first record, and then Billy Corgan had written her second record. I think we mentioned this last week on the show. And so somebody took took Kurt Cobain's likeness via AI and had it re-record a whole song, and it was eerily accurate, which scares me about AI.
I listened to that, the Celebrity Skin. I listened to that cover. It sounded very eerily similar, and it worked quite nicely. And then I started venturing out a little bit more as well this week. So I listened to Kurt Cobain singing "Been a While" by Stained. Incredibly accurate. I couldn't believe just how well his voice matched up with the song, matching Aaron Lewis's vocals. But then Soundgarden and Audioslave, obviously Chris Cornell, the singer for both, Fell on Black Days and Like a Stone. The raspy, spitty nailsness of Kurt Cobain's voice over those songs, and keep in mind, those songs weren't even written when he died. Like, they were written long after, even to an extent, a decade after he died. But this AI technology, putting the voices in the song is incredible. I downloaded all of them because I had a feeling they were going to get taken down shortly after. But I'm excited to hear more Kurt Cobain AI generated covers on some of the best grunge and post-grunge songs of the 90s and 2000s.
Well, it's interesting that you brought it up because there is and the correlation hasn't been drawn yet, but there is something really interesting about the fact that these really emotional artists that literally put all of their emotion into the music, we ended up losing them way too soon. And I mean, you mentioned two of them with Chris Cornell and Kurt Cobain and Chester Bennington from Linkin Park. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of artists that we've lost too soon. But there was a article that came out recently saying that enforcers in pro hockey on average die 10 years younger than their counterparts that play in the league. And you think to yourself too, there's got to be some dark moments in some of those, knowing that your job is to go out there and likely fight, and that's what's expected of you. And unfortunately, it comes connected to a lot of substance abuse and whatnot. Is that tied to it? Who knows? But there has to be some sort of correlation between the two and why we're losing some of these great people so early.
I think maybe knowing that you're just an asset, you're a meat stick, you're meat on a hook, you're going to come in, fight, and when the season's done and we don't need you anymore, see you later. I think that wears on guys. It wears on me a lot. I find it very difficult sometimes, as much as I remind myself, separating the business from the personal side of, we show up in the morning skate, it's fun, it's what I've been doing since I was a kid, and then the business side of, okay, coach doesn't like me, coach isn't giving me stars, coach is shitting on me, maybe coach sees something that I don't see, or vice versa. It's the business side. It's pro hockey. It's the greatest job in the world, and I'm sure being a musician, being an artist is very similar in so many senses, but it definitely comes with its challenges. There's no doubt about it.
Well, you get churned out of a factory more often than not. The music industry is just a factory of what's the next hit, what have you got to offer, what have you done for me lately, and hockey's kind of similar.
I think I heard you say in your morning show a couple of years ago was you have a whole lifetime to write your first record, and then you got 6 months to write your second.
Bingo. Yeah, because they're like, all right, let's see what you got, and you better make sure you have that other one in your back pocket because they will forget about you real quick and move on to whatever the next big thing is.
You think that's why people don't forget about Kurt Cobain is because he didn't get a chance to live that out? Like in his suicide note, he mentioned it's better to burn out than fade away. He didn't fade away. He just burnt out like that. And there's so many unanswered questions. And I think that's why I'm so curious and I'm so intrigued. And I think so many other people are as well.
Live fast and leave a good looking body.
Leave, hopefully, some games played in the Fedzino next year.
Well, no, hang on. When you say hopefully, is there any part of your mind that thinks maybe I don't play? Like, is that an actual thought?
I think the biggest question that I have is, will I get the opportunity? Because I don't think it's a matter of can I play. The answer is yes, firmly. But it's a matter of will somebody give me that opportunity to prove that? Like I look at every goalie in the FPHL right now, and I see multiple where I am light years ahead of them. I'm better than them. I move better than them. My hockey IQ is better. My puck handling, I'm bigger. I have all these assets in place. I'm driven. I want it. And I'm going to have long-term success more than they are. But because they've already been in the league, they've established a name, it's difficult to displace that. It's the same reason why for so many years guys say
you can't tell me I don't understand why Jonathan Quick and Matt Murray aren't getting these starts and then turn yourself on the other side of the coin saying, well, I don't have enough experience.
It goes both ways. So with Quick and Murray, I'm talking about you have proven winners. Like, you play the game to win. The guys won back-to-back cups. The guy won 2 cups in 3 years, 3 straight Western Conference Finals, was dominant. There's a winner right there. End of story. When you have guys in the league, let's say, and I don't want to disrespect NHL goalies because every goalie in the NHL is world-class. They're a top 64 for a reason. But if you were to pick some of the lower-hanging fruit, the James Reimers, the Craig Andersons, you wonder, do they not have somebody better? They have to have somebody better, more qualified. Well, the coaches are putting their ass on the line when they put a guy in the net and the guy gives up 9 goals. Well, that could be his job, and he's getting fired because he looks bad because they just lost the game. So I know the guys play in the league. I can have some confidence in that, and I'll bring them back. There's multiple goalies in the FPHL and multiple teams where, seeing them skate in person, seeing some of the highlights online, I just think to myself, like, how is this guy still in the league? How has this guy gotten opportunities and I haven't? But that's part of the game. You wait, you stay patient, you get that opportunity, you run with it, and once you're in, you're in. You're in like Flynn.
Well, I wish you the best of luck, sir, and I know that as we get closer and closer to that expansion draft day, I know your anxiety is going to go through the roof, but just know that cards will fall where they may, and I know that's a bad cliche, but hey, like I said, you've set yourself up that you don't need it, but you'd prefer to have it.
In regards to being drafted in the FPHL expansion draft?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would go back to Motor City if that was the option. I would go to Watertown. I would go to Binghamton. I would go to anywhere that, like we mentioned, wants to give me that opportunity. But it's getting that opportunity that's the hard part. So I will end the podcast right here. I will go back to being a stressed out basket case until the draft happens in 2 weeks. On behalf of Mr. Dave Wheeler and myself, I want to say, first off, thank you to everybody for listening. As always, thanks to Sheath Underwear for sponsoring the podcast as they have since day one. Manscaped for rejoining the podcast. If you have someone you want us to talk about, leave it in the comment section below. We'd love to hear from you. Dave and I chat all the time. Hopefully, we can get Dave back on Instagram. I want to make Dave a Slangin The Bizkit Dave Wheeler Instagram page, and we can re-announce his return to social media for the first time in, 5 years, Dave?
You don't want me back on social media. You really don't.
I think we do. Anyway, closing comments, Mr. Wheeler, take us home.
Well, just based on what we were just talking about with some of the mental health issues that a lot of people have, there's a great resource that we support at our radio station. It's called KidThink. You can check out kidthink.ca, and it's making sure that we take care of our kids' mental health because they're the future and they're the ones that really need us more than anything. So you can go check them out at kidthink.ca.
Awesome. And if things work out the way that they do, I'll have a new team, and if they don't, I'll be on your doorstep begging for a job reading Beauty's Only Weather by the fall.
So we'll know within 2 podcasts what your future looks like. Is that correct, or will it be 3?
I'm going to say 3, just in case there's some things that I can't talk about. I would say by June 1st, there should be a rough idea of what's going on.
Can't wait. Can't wait.